What was the big news this week, Imran?
So the big news this week was that Epic is opening their own game store, a digital distribution competitor to Steam.
Very directly aimed at Steam. But what was confusing about it is before the announcement came, you kind of got, before the big earthquake, there were some rumbles going around because Steam suddenly changed exactly how much they're paying out to developers.
Well, to the developers that release multi-million-dollar.
Can you explain how that works? It's confusing. Do you want to explain that first? Oh, go ahead, Imran.
The way it works is that there's certain thresholds of revenue that you will get paid a different fee, or you'll get paid a certain percentage of how much revenue you're making. So if you make over $10 million on Steam, you'll get, instead of the usual 70-30 split, it'll be a 75-25. If the 50 million, it's 80-20. And then after that, it's like it starts getting adjusted a bit more. But it's not like that's not numbers people will usually hit. If you're Bethesda, maybe. But if you're, Toby Fox, you're never going to hit that.
Yeah, what's weird to me is it seems like they're aiming that at the people that are already leaving to start their own distribution centers.
Yeah.
Bethesda has its own launcher. EA has its own launcher. Ubisoft,
Activision is just cramming more and more into Battle.net.
So it's aimed at them, and the indies are like over here like, hey, wait a minute. We're kind of your number one servicer here right now. Why aren't you doing this for us?
It is so weird. I don't understand who they're courting at that point. And why not just be a little more generous and just make it a more generous split overall and just a blanket policy? It seems like they're going out of their way so far just to have this weird scale thing that I don't even understand.
Then the nuke went off, like the Epic Game Store is
Right.
88%, 12%.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and like Tim Sweeney, when we asked him about it, I asked him like, how did you come to this number? And he said, well, running our own kind of storefront with Fortnite, we kind of learned just how much overhead these companies are claiming, and it's like 300 to 400% higher than it probably should be.
Interesting.
And them being former developers, they were like, well, that's not very cool. So
yeah, it turns out Valve's making a killing, and they don't exactly need to. So wait, you talked to Tim Sweeney?
Well, we Q&A'd with them. It wasn't a face-to-face or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else did you learn from that discussion?
Some stuff that they're not doing any DRM on it, which is interesting. They're allowing developers to do their own should they choose to. They are going to build out an achievements type system eventually.
Okay.
They're not there yet. And I think they're using Fortnite as the Trojan horse for this whole thing because the Epic Games launcher, there'll be a new version of it, and the Game Store is going to be a component of that.
So if you want to play Fortnite on PC, you will probably have to interact with the Epic Store in some way.
Yeah. Which, it's very smart. This is a good time to do that.
It's bigger than Half-Life 2 was, which launched Steam, right? In theory. What do you think of this thing, Imran?
I think it's really interesting. And one of the things I pulled out from Birch's interview was they specifically mentioned that they have a percentage dedicated to customer service, which is like it seems like they're very clearly trying to see the complaints about Steam and see what people are saying, like what consumers and what developers think is bad about that system, and trying to address that right out the gate. And that's probably the smartest way that most companies aren't going to be able to compete with Steam. And like it may be like a listing of like Google and Amazon, and Epic is one of the only companies that can do it, and this is the smartest way to do it.
But is it really going to put that much of a dent in Steam? I mean, part of me is like, oh, could be a game changer, but at the same time, like, I don't know, just companies will release their games in one other place. Is it really going to have that big of an impact on the market and Steam in particular?
Well, they're going to push exclusivity with it. They're going to try to bring in some titles that'll bring people to that platform. But the people that are most excited about this, they're not the consumers. The consumers are like, oh, man, another installer.
Yeah,
Come on.
Right.
They're not excited about that. The developers, if you were following along on Twitter yesterday, they were super stoked.
Just about that revenue split?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is nice to get a little more competition for Valve in there, but just the revenue split alone, it's like, all right, I will put my games on this, but they're also still going to put it on Steam. Like, I wonder what those deals are for the exclusives that Epic's willing to make.
So Epic actually had a really good idea with this, is that if you're using Unreal Engine 4 or 3 or whatever, and any revenue you make on the Epic Store, it completely waives the engine fees. So you don't have to give Epic any more money than you would if the game sold on Steam. So if you're, let's say, Ubisoft and you make an Unreal Engine game, you want to point people to the Epic Store to buy it instead of to Steam, because you'll be making more money off the Epic Store than you would even if you hit the $50 million threshold on Steam.
Right.
And for indies, it's huge because you're not paying, you're not getting the 30%, you're getting the or you're not getting the 70%, you're getting the 88%, and you're not paying the royalty.
Yeah, that is, God, it's diabolical. But a part of me feels like there was a lot of hype. What was it, last year? Maybe even earlier this year when like Discord started selling games as well. It was like, oh, hey, could this really disrupt things? And maybe I'm not paying enough attention to it, but it's like, it seems like it just is quietly another option out there. I'm trying to figure out if this is a game changer or just quietly another option. Which way are you leaning, Imran?
I'm leaning towards game changer, but it's not going to be that for a couple of years. It still has to get its feet wet and still has to and find its footing. It has to basically convince developers and consumers at the same time. And consumers aren't going to be convinced yet because everyone wants just that single launcher that they don't have to worry about for anything else. Like GOG never caught up. If anyone wants to jump in at this point, it's a little too crowded a market, but if anyone has a chance, it's Epic.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting to me, like the long run, is what I'm more interested in seeing than the next couple of years. Steam's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But all these kids that are growing, like the middle schoolers and the high schoolers that play Fortnite all the time, if they turn to this as their game store when they become purchasers instead of gift receivers,
yeah,
that could be the real sea change.
And honestly, for that generation too, I'd imagine all it's really going to take is like some amazing free weekends or just something, right? When they want to boot up Fortnite, just see one splash screen of like, hey, this game's free.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I guess I'll get this one. And then bam, they're hooked in that ecosystem for the rest of their life and there's no way out.
And if it gains a foothold, then there might be a domino effect where we see other platform holders start to reevaluate how much of the cut they keep.
Right, right. I wonder, 1 year from now, do we think Valve will backtrack even further and just try and match it, or just go 90-10, just some crazy bold move?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can never tell you what Valve's thinking. A, they're smarter than me by a large margin.
Yeah.
I never can predict what they're doing.
Yeah.
The thing is, Valve will always do the least thing they can do to still keep going. So if they find that they can make the split 88-12, if they can work that, then they'll do that. It's just they don't want to quite yet because they're still in a position of power.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the influencer thing that Epic is doing is actually really cool, and I can see Valve copying that very soon.
What is that?
That is, so it'll have a listing of influencers, or people can sign up to be influencers on the Epic Store, and then work with developers to show their game on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and they will get a copy of percentage of the revenue designed by the developers, and Epic will pay the first 5% for 24 months.
What I think that's interesting about this is like the FCC is going to get involved at some point because, like that, is it advertorial or is it like editorial?
Right.
That whole dividing line, this makes it even murkier.
Oh, fun. All right. I would like to jump forward 1 year from now just to see what is happening in this marketplace and whether or not, how many games I've bought out of the Epic launcher. Because, maybe they'll just pack it full of exclusives. Maybe we'll find out at the Game Awards. Maybe we'll talk about it more, but interesting times. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.